Hey everybody, it's Pastor Aaron and Pastor Vince here today, and just trying a little different conversation, different connection with you guys. We're going to just call this one a snow day conversation as we lean into some of the stuff we've been talking about on Sundays with the series of Love Where You Live, where that came from, some of the practical steps that Pastor Vince has been talking about the last couple of weeks with it, and recapping and going back into just some of the statements and points that he's made over the last couple of weeks in that, and how we can take that practice of not just saying that we love where we live and the proximity and the physical location of just appreciating it, but truly connecting with people and loving the people and loving the community that we live in.
Yeah, and the reality is that with it being a snow day, if you're potentially sitting there and there's not much going on around you, you may have more opportunity to check on your neighbors during this time than you might have had on a regular week. So definitely take advantage of that, and I hope it's been a blessing to you as much as it has been to me to be able to preach it and to talk through those ideas of what it looks like to truly love where we live and to love out loud where we live.
Yeah, and I think our church has gotten used to the fact that we say we want to be a church that changes the community, not just a church that's in the community. And so how do we put that into practice?
Yeah, for me, when I was coming into this year and really praying over the sermon calendar and where we were going to start, I really wanted to begin to challenge people in their own personal evangelism and their own personal convictions. And it's really hard to do that if you don't look at some of the simplest things that we're told in the Bible, starting with the great commandment of love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength, there found in Mark and Matthew. But then also to add to the second part of that Great Commission, where Jesus kind of bookends that by going, we do that by telling the world, by making disciples, by taking this message to the people that are nearest to us. And so I thought, what there's no better way to start a year than to really challenge ourselves and center ourselves on, I'm going to love God and I'm going to love people around me, and I'm going to show that love by sharing the gospel with them.
What would you say, like, before we get into the content of what the sermons have been like and the things we talked about the last couple of weeks, just personally for you, seasons of loving where you live, evangelism, personal evangelism, what have been some of like your favorite moments, whether it's sitting at McDonald's, just connecting with people, talking with people, leading your family, baseball games, football games? What's just been some of your favorite chances to love?
Yeah, I think all of those, Aaron. When I think of moments where God has blessed me with the chance to have a gospel conversation, whether that's a full-blown leading someone to the Lord, or if it's just hey, where are you at with Jesus on this? I've had some moments where it's either been grocery store. I joke about that a lot on Sundays, but in those moments, I've been able to just stop and see somebody that I recognize from the church and be able to kind of just sense, hey, is there something I could pray about? And be able to do that in that moment there, or ball games, I think, is big for me. But then also just those nudges. I'm in a season now where I think I'm praying more for God to just kind of let me know. Like, God, is this, if there is a moment that's available, make me available. But don't let me miss it. I think it's easy for us to kind of just go, Lord, I'm available. But Lord, help me to not miss it. And so I step into it.
Be available, but be aware.
Yeah. I think the awareness is big. I think we're aware of big picture. We're believers. We need to follow through with this, but we're sometimes not aware in our day-to-day and the moment-to-moment, especially in our rhythms of work and school and just life. I think we set aside time for awareness, like if I'm listening to the right worship song or if I'm listening to a sermon or in a life group. But those moments of being aware outside those windows may be your greatest opportunity to be a neighbor to somebody.
For sure. We talked through like the simple obedience, just being able to say yes a lot of times. Like that's what Jesus is asking for. And to love your community, love your neighbor, love the neighbor as yourself. Like that simple obedience, can you just dive into a little bit more of like why that part matters so much when taking the step of loving someone, reaching someone?
Yeah, I think as I've studied this and just as I've went back into the Gospels and really tried to get an idea for Jesus's approach, we can look through his ways of time with the Lord, and we can look, and I think we can learn great things, great disciplines from watching the life of Jesus. But in this time through, as I was reading it, it was the simplicity of what he asked. It wasn't a lot of complicated instruction. It wasn't grand things that he was asking us to do. Now, when the people in the Bible did it, you saw these grand things happen. You saw, all he tells Peter to do is get out of the boat. It's a simple instruction. It's not complex. It's not buried underneath a ton of theology in that moment. It's a simple request of get out of the boat. And then when Peter does it, now we have this incredible moment that we read in Scripture. But you don't only see that when he heals, rise and walk. They're not complex. And I don't think that's changed. I think if we as followers of Christ would really lean into the simplicity of what the Gospels or what Scripture and what Jesus commands of us or desires of us, we'd find out that it's not really that complex. It's just simple obedience. It's, I'm going to learn to say yes in this moment so that saying yes in the next moment is more comfortable. It's more my rhythm. It's more what I do. And I think the more we learn to do that, the easier it becomes.
We'll talk in the practical steps that you mentioned about like being engaged in a conversation and not be dominating them. But I think that's one thing with obedience and simple obedience. It's like we live in a culture that wants to dominate the narrative or dominate the conversation, or even, I think it's why some people even sometimes when it comes to evangelism or loving your neighbor, like there's people that go all in and they dominate that conversation or that connection, and it scares people off. And Jesus isn't asking for us to dominate anything. He wants us to be obedient and all.
Yeah, throughout that whole New Testament narrative, it's seed planting. Trees don't appear tomorrow. Like it's
They're not going to appear tomorrow.
Definitely not tomorrow. But with our current culture of, I think domination is the right word, the win or prove you're right kind of mentality keeps us from stepping into just some simple conversations of, hey, it may be better if I get to know you, to know a little bit of your context and a little bit of your backstory before I try to blow you away with my knowledge of how to break down scripture text.
For sure.
And I think we sometimes we'll talk about this a little further on, we put this weird pressure on us to do that, and Jesus never did. It was walk with him, have a conversation with him, stop by the well and have a conversation. And that part of it is something that I think we miss. And it's learning that simple obedience and that just consistent steps of obedience, the incremental obedience, I think is the way I would want to put it, that I'm going to say yes so that I know how to say yes next time, so that I know how to say yes next time.
You think you said that we miss it, and when you say that, like the big church, local church in general, misses it. Like you can go narratives and you can go culture or whatever coming out of seasons that we've been in and agenda against the church, and people saying, well, the church doesn't know how to love, or the church doesn't love. But like, can we be like, does the church know how to love people outside the walls?
Kind of putting me on the spot on that one. I think at its core as humans, I think we do. I think we wrestle with, can we? There's been a drive in church culture that says you don't be around the wrong people. You don't, what's that old goofy saying? You don't hang around with certain types of folks. And we say it garbage in, garbage out.
Don't
your
hang
friends.
around with people that smoke. Or
Drink. Yeah, you don't hang around with women that smoke, drink, or chew. No, people that smoke, drink, or chew, or women that do. And I don't know that I may not. I think what we're seeing today is like, I don't know if a lot of Christians build enough relationship to know whether the person smokes, drinks, or chews. Mm-hmm. I think we just have this expectation that I've got to dive in. I've got to know all the information. I've got to present this packaged gospel thing to you in hopes that you respond to it. And if you don't, well, then I shake my shoes off and walk on, you know. And strangely enough, I can bounce around scripture and defend that approach. But I think what the church has done is we've kind of jumped over this slow, consistent obedience and love and tried to land in faster results. Like, can we get
Rather than the connection, let's get conversions.
Yes, yes, connections over conversions, and even conversions. I don't know that we're asking. I think we even kind of water that down some and go decisions. You know, we want decisions when the reality is, and I said this a few weeks ago, and my friend Brandon Petty mentioned this in one of his sermons a couple months back, is that we live in an incredible culture where people are churched but not changed. And I think that is, I called him and asked him, I'm like, hey, can I use that? Because I think it speaks so clearly. Because I think when you're changed, you understand the grace that you received, and you're going to be patient with people. When it's just like, how can I build a church? How can I build a church? How can I build a church? You're just going to look for ways to get decisions. And sometimes decisions aren't far enough. There has to be a change. That conversion has to be something that we're pursuing. And it takes time.
So you said the church is often chasing fast results over slow love or slow connection. Do you think there's a flip side to that too? That there's some places that like we're going to be so intentional about our connection and who we love that there's not results and going to connect with people outside the walls.
Yeah. I think for sure you can see in church culture that there is that. I mean, not only church culture, family cultures. You know, we've got ours. We're looking out for ours, and you know, and I think this happens whether it's big church, small church. I think just a mindset where you get to a certain place, and the instinct is to turn inward and go, we're going to take care of our people. We're going to take care of our people, which isn't bad. But the Great Commission is to continue to add people. It's go and make disciples, going and making disciples. It's not that you get to a full point and we stop. And so, yeah, for sure, there's definitely the flip side of that where we seek, you know, we're going to love. I don't know that love is the right terminology there. I think we call it that, but what we mean is we're going to get comfortable and we'll call it loving people, but we're not pressing them to change. We're not challenging conviction. We're not really holding one another accountable when we get to that, the actual flip side of it. You know, and I think there's a balance of how do you love the people. You know, to make a disciple, we need to be a disciple. So I think Jesus there, as he's speaking to the disciples in that Great Commission, he says, hey, to you disciples, go disciple. And I think to the church today, we have to be saying the same thing. Hey, you disciples, you followers that are here, go make followers. Go give them this message and then walk with them. You know, it's 3.5 years before Jesus got to the point where he commissions them as disciples here, and we see this and at this point, and it takes time. And love is not fast. We don't see that anywhere. It's you know, Galatians tells us that it's long-suffering. This fruit that the Spirit puts in us is long-suffering or patience and the willingness to stick it out with folks until they see who Christ is. And hopefully we can be the catalyst for that.
The four like practical ways talked about being able to love your neighbor, love your community, those kind of things. What is a story that might stick out to you that, as we go into like recapping those 4 ones, that like, hey, when I was intentional about being available, or I was intentional about remembering someone's name, or I was intentional, like that you can recall a story of like this person responded to a moment like that.
I think we had when we first launched in Flippin', we were really blessed to see God do some amazing things. And there was a gentleman that came, and one night he called me in the middle of the night, was struggling, and I left and came and seen him. We had a good relationship, but he ended up leaving the church, or it's when we transferred. When we moved Real Life to Mountain Home, he stayed and connected. There was just really no connection after the church there had shut down and we had moved to Mountain Home. Well, that's now been 15 years ago. that's happened in 2026. And I guess it's been about 3 or 4 months ago, he showed up on a Sunday. I haven't seen this guy in 15 years and hadn't connected with him, didn't know what was going on in his story. And when he walked in and somebody said, "Hey, I brought my friend," before he could introduce me, I said, "You're Ken." And just knowing his name, you could see on his face that they felt valued. They felt like I wasn't just a blip on the screen. He remembers my name. Now, I'll be honest, I don't nail that all the time. I think that sometimes, I definitely run into that at times. And then there are other times I really try to be intentional about it. But for me, like that was a moment, and there have been others, but that was a moment that was very clear that it mattered, that it didn't just go, "You were that guy that used to come to church." I was able to go, "You're Ken." And I remember the night we drove around, and I remember, the honor of being able to walk with you through some things, even though that's been 15 years ago. So I would say that one stands out to me as one of those moments.
That's why I'm glad that on Wednesday nights we have name tags sometimes. You got 120, 150 kids sometimes, and you're like, "Yeah, Allison."
Yeah, for me, it's the Walmart where I'm out of, I think when you're out of the element, like there's somebody that I might see on a Sunday and it click immediately. I know who this person is. I see him every Sunday. But if I'm in Walmart or if I catch somebody at a ball game or something like that and they go, "Hey, PV," or "Hey, Pastor Vince," I almost have to kind of file back through my brain and go, I can't, it's just not coming to me.
But I think this is also where I don't know if it'd be insecurity, but it would be where the enemy then flips it. Sure. And then it's like, "Hey, you didn't remember a name. You're not going to be able to do this. You're going to botch this on the next one." And for people that are just sitting in seats, like the people that are watching, like you fail that one time, then it's easy to be like, "I'm not going to engage like that the next time." And
right, it is easy, and I think that's the trick of the enemy always, is to trip you, and just because once he trips you, then it's up to you to decide.
Because you feel bad, like you wanted to care for the person, you want to be
right.
intentional, but then it's like I couldn't even remember their name.
Right. Well, I had a lady caught me off guard one time in a previous church. I had been the pastor, I think, 3 Sundays, and we were having a prayer before service, and the lady walked back, and we were getting ready to go into prayer, and in the room full of people, I don't know that her intention was bad. I don't think it was she wasn't going out of the way to be malicious, but we were all joined hand in prayer, getting ready to pray for the service, and we, of course, said, "Hey, does anybody have a prayer request?" And in that moment, her prayer request was that I would remember her name. And then I felt bad because as soon as she said it, everything in my brain disappeared. I don't even know that I'd known how to pray in that moment. I just forgot everything, including her name. And I thought, "Oh no, I hope she doesn't ask me what her name is, because I'm just going to have to fall on that sword." And yeah, you go, "Man, yeah, I feel bad. I want to be a good pastor. I want to be a good brother or sister in Christ. I want to be a good neighbor." But sometimes, we're human. There's a human element that we've got to give each other grace on. And so I think you be intentional about trying to know your neighbors' names. Do you want to walk through some of those practicals? Or?
Yeah, and I think one of the being authentic in that, like, I think someone would much rather appreciate you saying, "Hey, I'm sorry. Like, it's not clicking for me right now. I don't remember your name. Can you remind me?" Than to try and dance it like, "Hey, sport, like."
Yeah, I'm not calling anybody sport. So, I don't think I'm doing
but
that.
But I think, again, like in today's culture, like just be real with people.
Yeah, that's what people desire more than anything, And I find myself, maybe because I'm getting older, but I find myself being able to go, "I can't remember your name, but I know you have 2 kids in student ministry and 1 child still in children's ministry, and you're signed up for groups." And like, I can remember other details, but it's just like sometimes the name is gone. Mm-hmm. And so, but I do want to be intentional about it. When I was walking through this sermon, my intentionality or my conviction came from not necessarily here at church, but like where I live, like at my home. Do I know my neighbors' names? Or do I know that's the new guy that moved in, but really he's not a new guy. His house has been built for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Do I know, do I know them? Do I know how to be praying for them? that's where my conviction landed, because I think we sometimes now, culture asks us to, when you get home, that's your safe space. That's, I don't have to be on and I don't have to do this. But it's what, man, it's what a mission field that God puts us in to be able to step into some intentionality.
Yeah. You talked about it as far as culturally getting away from kids being able to go ride their bikes or just being out and playing in the yard or different things like that. And I think there's just so much health to be able to go back to like that neighborhood mindset
Yeah.
and being able to connect with people, appreciate the value. It's something that probably for the last 8 months for us at our home with our neighbors, like he's been actually in a rehab facility from a back surgery the last several months and different things like that. And he's back home now. But just little moments of getting to check in with her or her letting me know that he is back home now. And you could just tell how appreciative they are, that they have a neighbor that they can knock on the door, they can ask, hey, can you let the dog out? Just little things that not everybody's asking, no matter what neighborhood you're in now.
Yeah, I think definitely where you see culture shifting to much smaller front porches, much bigger back porches. Like you can just see the shift where the entryway where you're, the days of sitting on the front porch talking to the neighbors as they walk by, we flipped it and we put all that entertaining space and welcoming space and all of that on the back side of the house, where only those that are invited in get to really experience it. And I don't. There's nothing bad about having a great entertaining space in your backyard, and nothing overtly sinful about it. I think we just miss some opportunities being out on the front porch a little bit more and getting to know those neighbors around us. The names, names and needs. If I were going to talk about intentionality, it would be the names and needs. What are their names? But then what are they going through? You don't have to get into everybody's business about it to find out, hey, what can I be praying for you, on in your life this week?
Can we recap those four things? Like
Yeah,
the
sure.
practical ways to change your neighborhood, to love your love where you live.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's knowing names. That we talked about that. So if you don't know, bite the bullet. Ask the question. Hey, you know what? I know we've lived
Go
each
open
other.
their mailbox. Check.
Yeah. Don't steal their mail. Okay, but knowing their names, being intentional. So I mean, you're going to need to go. Don't rely on, well, maybe I'll run into them. If you really want to understand the mission field that is your fence line, or your property line, you're going to have to go be intentional, and you're going to need to engage, and you're going to look for opportunities. And so being intentional with your neighbors and with finding out their name. And then I think the third thing is praying for them, for you to legitimately set time aside and pray for them. Pray for them by name for the need in their life. Whether that's, man, the wife's been sick for a couple days, the guy with the back surgery, this neighbor's going through an adoption process. And we just want to be praying for them that God would bless their home and bless the situation. God, if there's any way I can be a servant in this, show me, reveal it to me. So I think those three are probably the top three, but then the last one is more internal. Those are all outward. You're learning the name not only for their sake, but your sake. You're being intentional for their sake and your sake. You're praying for them for their sake. But the last one is, I don't know if it's a rule, but I think it's a mindset we have to have, and that's going, I'm going to practice presence, not live in pressure. And I think with the Great Commission, when we preached about that this last Sunday, that was the real emphasis I wanted people to leave with. That Jesus did not show up and immediately apply gospel pressure. He showed up and he was present. And that presence changed everything. We still read about it today. We still study it today. We still try to mimic it today. But I don't know that presence is something we're good at practicing. There's a lot of P's coming up here. But because of our pace in life, we struggle with presence. To be able to just be in a moment with somebody. To not be hurried, not be rushed. And I think that's what Jesus calls us to. And that's why I said the whole narrative through the New Testament is this idea of planting seeds, especially in Paul's writing. You see it, and that just doesn't happen quick. There is a lot of things that happen around a seed that take time for it to flourish into something. And I think relationships and being a neighbor, they require that. So I think those four things: learn names, be intentional, pray specifically, and then live in presence, not pressure, to follow and kind of live out and minister like Jesus did.
When you mentioned it, like when you're living in that pressure, it becomes agenda, but
Yeah.
you're in presence, like you're on mission.
Yeah, I think it's different. You know, if my goal is I'm going to knock on this door to hopefully get somebody to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, or I'm going to knock on this door so that I can hopefully get them to attend our church for Easter service or Sunday services, and I think if we go into it with too much of an agenda, we may miss opportunities to really minister to people, because you see it in Jesus's life. You see it when before there was a conversion of Zacchaeus, there was dinner. There was hey, I'm coming to your house today. Before there was a conversion with the Samaritan woman, there was a conversation at the well. And then again, going back with the disciples. Man, how many nights around the fire were there before here's what I want you to go do? And we so often miss just that presence aspect of the gospel being, all of the fruits of the Spirit can only be fleshed out over time. People don't know you're kind by one act. They don't know gentleness in your life by one act. They don't. It's a presence thing that they're going to need to experience in you and from you, and the longer that you're with them and around them, the better your chances are of getting an opportunity, that door opening to going, hey, give me a reason for the hope that is within you. So presence trumps everything. And
I think one of my favorite things when I work with some other churches and pastors and stuff, one of my favorite things to hear is when that pastor says, I'm going to go coach my daughter's volleyball game this weekend. Or I'm going to, like, we've got a parent band gathering coming up. And I love those moments because, like, it's a matter of first they're serving their home and they want to connect with their kids and be a part of their kids' life. And from the overflow, the community impact that people get to be a part of. In that, like, there's not an agenda that, hey, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be seen because I'm going to be a coach here. It's not like I'm going to serve my kid, I'm going to serve my home, but then also I'm going to serve the community in the way. And finding opportunities for people to do those things is huge. So, like, you got to know your home, you got to know Jesus, you got to know personally what your mission is as a home, what you guys value, what you desire, and let that then be where you step into a mission field.
yeah, I think what you just said, and we'll talk a little bit about this in the upcoming weeks in the series as we talk through community and some more things, but what you said about having a mission, these first 2 weeks of the series of the Great Commandment and the Great Commission is plenty of content for a family to sit down and go, if this is what God has asked us to do, how are we going to do this? And so what does that look like for our family? What does that look like for our conversations? Because I do think there is a fine line. Like, I can go coach, you can go coach. I can go sit. You know, when I used to sit down at Walmart or McDonald's and talk with people as they come in about church, there was never there was no church, so I didn't need for them to come to the church. I was just legitimately curious about what their mindset was on church. What do you get out of it? How has it fed you? Has it been great? How has it been awful? And that was very freeing to not have, I'm talking to you so that you come sit at the 10 o'clock service on Sunday or the 8:30. It was more just like, hey, tell me about how God has blessed you through the local church, or tell me about how people have hurt you through the local church, and just that time with them without an agenda but a mission. I think it's all in on the intent of our heart. If the value is to be seen rather than to make a difference, you have an agenda. The making a difference is where mission comes in. So I would agree with that 100%.
Cool. Well, if you stuck around and watched the whole thing, listened to the whole thing, awesome, great, appreciate it. On a snow day, what is like the Daniel family thing that has to happen? Like, I'm going to be making stovetop hot cocoa with milk, vanilla, cocoa powder, like the legit stuff. That happens every snow day. What is
Okay. We live near some popular sledding hills, and so for the last several snow days, like we wrap up, and since we don't have the gloves and stuff in stock, backlogged, or
or
backstocked.
they've outgrown it?
Yeah, or they've outgrown it. It is straight old school. Go to the sock basket, 3 layers of Nike socks and whatever else on, and we hit the sled hill. Brinley's loving it. The boys still like going out and sliding down the hills. Chilly, when the sun goes down and there's snow outside, I'm just ready to settle. So chili, something hot and hearty at night is, we're a big soup family anyway. So, but yeah, definitely we're gonna try to go sledding somewhere.
I'm not a cold person. I want the sun. I want the beach. I want to play golf. But one of the prettiest things is as it gets dark and the moon's reflecting off the snow.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's gorgeous. I think the great thing about seasons is that I'm thankful for them all, but I don't have to like them all.
Because they're going to end.
They're going to end, and it's going to change. And soon it'll be springtime and sunny, and it'll be August, and we'll all be complaining about how hot it is. But yeah, if we're hanging out at home, I want to be with my family, and I hope you all, if you are at home, that you're safe and that you're settled in. And I hope this has been a blessing to you.